the way of looking into that is that you need to reverse engineer the why. So, the two main question that I am asking brands when I'm joining those conversations is, how do you think this will impact your business, and how do we think we should go about doing that, right? And for them, in case like Adidas, that we went really clearly to speak with the Web3 crypto native directly, right? Porsche is going in a very similar direction by taking, things what you just said into account. The the question, or the answer to that question that I mentioned before, which is how it's going to impact your business and how we should go about it, it comes down to who you want to speak with, right? Who is the audience? Who is the target group? Who is the demographics? And for both brands, which is a clear strategy from looking from the outside, you don't need to be inside to know, those are brands that want to talk to the Web3 crypto NFT native, right? So, how to best do that if not fully understanding the community you are getting in, going natively to it, and sort of like creating that relationship in a manner that feels organic and natural to the people that you want to do that relationship with, right? So those are cases that the core objective is to communicate, connect, co-create, and reach that audience. Now, there are obviously other brands that I'm working with that they're going the opposite direction. They want to reach to their already existing consumers, or they want to reach to the wider mainstream, quote unquote, Web2 audience, right? So to those brands, when we are having conversations and developing strategies and going through that process, obviously they won't go down the route of like calling NFTs, putting, connect with our MetaMask here, or calling whatever underscore Eve, or, like the conversation and the comms and the strategy is different, but all comes down to what the brand wants to achieve at the end of the day, right? So that's kind of like what is the fundamental difference, right? I'm working with Shell right now, right? You wouldn't expect Shell looking into that space,
No.
but Shell has a blockchain team inside the company for over 6 years, right? They've been doing stuff on the blockchain for 6 years
So they
now.
were in that first like enterprise blockchain run back in like
Exactly.
2016.
Exactly. And they have a very
Interesting.
strong team in-house. And now they're looking into the future of that, right? Okay, blockchain is not something that stays just in the back anymore. It's not just supply chain, it's not enterprise blockchain. Now is a consumer-facing technology. How do we apply the intelligence and everything we've developed so far towards that audience, right? But obviously, Shell is not launching a PFP tomorrow to talk to the degens.
I want the
That
premium gasoline one.
you know what I'm saying? That is clear, but that's sort of like the difference, And if you look at utility use cases, what is also really exciting beyond the sort of like the language, the communication strategy, or even the strategy per se to go to market, is the different ways that those brands are utilizing that technology, right? So if you look it up, for example, what Shell has been doing lately with NFTs, they're utilizing NFTs to represent provenance of energy, right? So what does that mean is the energy business is shifting. It used to be centralized, where there is one power that supplies energy, let's say for a country. And now what's happening, because everybody's getting solar roofs on their roof,
Tesla
you are
batteries.
decentralizing the supply of energy. And because of that, what would be interesting play for a brand like Shell is to become the marketplace where you can come buy and sell energy from peers, right? And what best representation for that ownership or exchange than NFTs? So you see what I'm going? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
depending on where those brands want to go, there are very different plays that can happen, right? It can be more culture driven, it can be more technology driven, can be more business driven, can be more customer experience driven. So that's kind of like the difference, and that's why I'm so excited, because a lot of people, when I first start working with Fortune 500 brands, especially from our space, they're like, oh, you're working with the man now. You go in there and sort of like bringing the man into the space. And I'm like, sure, because you think that we rugging each other and shouting, we all gonna make it on Twitter, having 80% of us being bots is really the way that we're gonna show the world what we discovered.
I love
you
wash
know
trades. What are you talking about?
so that's the thing, if you want to be true to what we believe Web3 stands for, and develop this space in a manner that we can shape a better internet and the best future for creators and ownership and all that jazz. Like, we need to go with the big brands too, because they will bring the consumer base.
Yeah, I love that. It's a really good point. And in my head, naturally, being a human, I'm sitting here listening to you talk to Shell. And I'm like, he's totally going towards loyalty. He's totally going towards loyalty. And he's like, no, it's decentralized energy. And my mind just goes.
It's mad. It's interesting. And sitting on those different rooms and being exposed to those different things is just so interesting, because it goes way beyond than what you even imagine, right? Like, when I first got introduced to that project, it was like, fuck, I wouldn't expect that.
No.
Super exciting, right? And then I'm working with another automotive brand that they are building a metaverse platform, right? Not for their brand, but for others to come and play in. They're setting up an entire new company for that. And you're like, oh, okay, interesting, let's go down that rabbit hole now, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things that happen in that space that's exciting, and that displays that a part, the FTX stuff, a part of the bear market, a part the macroeconomics that we're seeing, those brands are doubling down, right? Adidas has been hiring for a Web3 studio team. Salesforce has a Web3 studio team. Gucci has a bunch of people working there, right? Artifact was purchased by Nike, right? Like, if you think that things are, just slowing down because number is not going up anymore, like, that's where I'm doubling down, because all of them are taking the advantage that numbers are not going up right now, so they can take their time to build a sustainable business.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I have this conversation a lot when I'm talking to fellow Web3ians, and they're saying, when everybody else is leaving, I'm staying. Like, this is the time to be here. There's obviously support from Fortune 500 brands, and it's funny because I was having a conversation at our local Atlanta blockchain center here with
Hmm.
some people who were part of the early Bitcoin meetups in 2019, and they worked at Cisco, not the food
Hmm.
company, the technology company,
Sure.
and nobody would host anything there solely because it's Cisco. And I'm just like, why would you not? I mean, this is like one of the oldest technology companies, and you don't want to host events there simply because they're an incumbent, right? It just doesn't make any sense. Now, I
Hmm.
do have a question. When you go in and you're answering your initial two questions, what does that process look like? Because it sounds like it takes a lot of listening to the internal team to make sure that you're aligned with exactly what they want. And then it also sounds like when you're figuring out who's in the market to address, that you have to go out and reach out to those potential customers. So what does that process look like to you when you go inside?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, in projects, for example, like Porsche, I'm not pulled in day one, right? Like, Porsche has literally been building what they're about to launch for about 6 to 8 months, right?
Okay.
And then they bring someone on, could be me or somewhere else, to sort of like have a look on what they've been working, give an external point of view. We reached a point that, we've seen this stuff so often that I would love to get someone of trust that understand both words, branding, marketing, web 2, but also web 3 natively and deep from, down the rabbit hole. So, like, what do you think? Right. So depends on how we start a conversation. Other companies, they literally reach out and saying, like, we need to educate everyone on what's happening, and we need to start shaping our strategy on how we're going to go about it, right? So we have nothing. And then, within that two questions which I mentioned, the core question for me as a marketeer is, the first action is to get their brand strategy book, right? I go there and say, okay, where is your brand going to be in 5, 10 years from now? And how can we then reverse engineer that goal in a manner that we utilize these new mediums to support that to be achieved, right? So how can we look into how NFT support, you becoming the best sports brands in the world, right? How does metaverse supports you becoming the go-to for mobility company in the world, right? So those are the process we go through, and for me, is the easiest way to understand and to help guiding them on what could be a good idea or what could be a good strategy and what is bullshit. Because if that doesn't play well against the brand strategy, there is absolutely no way or no point for them to be doing so, right? So that's usually like how I go about that. And once I filter the brand strategy per se, then we start looking into the business possibilities of it, right? Obviously, everybody wants to hear that they're gonna make 24 million in 24 hours like Adidas did, but I'm there to say that it's gonna be rather the opposite,
Hmm.
right? There shouldn't be an expectation right now on how early we are within the space that revenue, generating revenue will be a clear outcome of what you're doing, right? Because if that's this expectation, it becomes much harder to see the long-term plan and the possibilities, and therefore it becomes much harder to execute against the brand strategy that was the initial idea, right? So a lot of those conversations are back and forth and sense checking, and there are companies that I decide not working with,
Hmm.
right? Because I see that either they are into it with the wrong mentality, or the team that is behind it is not ready yet to the stuff I have to say. Because a lot of times I want Dan to be true to the space. A lot of times I want Dan to, yes, reward the artists in a manner that we reward the artists in Web3, which is they have royalties within the collection, right? Or a lot of times they want to just come in and sell something and make money and then call it a day, right? I'm like, well, that's not going to play out. I'm not putting my name against it. So there is a lot of things that go through that process, and each case is extremely specific. But the difference of what has happened the last 8 months to what's happening now in the last 2 to 3 months is that all those brands are looking on what you just said, right? They're looking into membership, they're looking into things that are less alien to their business, but also less risky or less volatile, that they don't necessarily need to make money in day one, but they can start looking to building a sustainable business for the long run, right? So the the thing I'm recommending brands the most to do as a very first step is, one, red pilling their internal employees, right? So literally saying, just do a pop, right? Like, do a pop for this meeting to prove that people attended. Make them create a digital wallet. Nobody needs money. Nobody needs to do through any exchange. Literally just collecting it, right? Oh, cool! Like, there is a proof that we've been to that meeting, and then you start building on top of that. Inspire people to get their hands dirty as early as possible, right? And the second thing I'm telling them to do is, now that you've red pill those people and they're more creative and understand this environment more, is how do we go about the same way with our customers, with our already existing clients, right? So you throw in an event or you're sponsoring an event anyway in a month from now. Why don't you do a pull-up? Why don't you do a digital collectible there? Why don't you do something that people don't need a wallet, they can claim with their email? You prepare a journey for people that have claimed with the email to explain then what this is about and how they go about creating a wallet to then own their first digital asset, right? So as soon as you are the one that has brought people to the space in the right manner and it felt good for them, they will remember you forever. And as a brand element, that's priceless, right? So as soon as you start doing those two very simple and small things, it becomes much easier for you to, one, learn how to do it as a collective, as a company, and two, iterate on what you've done by learning through the data as well, right? So if you think about Dune analytics and all those analytics dashboards you have out there, now you can profile and learn much more about the people that are interacting with your digital collectible than you possibly could with people that you're spamming with your CRM program, right? Because there, their name, their gender, their zip code, and that's all bullshit within the realm of digital world, right? What you really want to know is what they are interested in, which other collectibles do they own, how active are they, how long have they been active, right? And with that information, that becomes much easier to serve their needs based on their interests, rather than just going about launching a new PFP and hoping that it sticks.
Yeah, that wow. Mind racing, which which means that was amazing. One, it's fascinating because it sounds like you go into brands and your first idea is, I'm not here to necessarily change your brand. I'm here to reduce the amount of friction so that you can use this new technology in order to better your brand. I'm not going to be inconsistent. And that all starts with you, the internal customer.